One of the topics which we certainly get the most questions about is all about carb loading. If you could take us through some carb loading guidelines for race day, that would be great.
In order to start your race with enough glycogen stores in both your muscle and your liver, as mentioned before, it's important to eat carbohydrate-rich foods on the day and the days leading into your race, depending on the event that you're doing. And we can run through those guidelines shortly, but depletion of your body carb stores is another major cause of fatigue on race day. So really optimizing that carb status whilst you're tapering at the same time will be a primary goal of your race prep. So carb loading refers to the practice of maximizing or supercompensating your muscle and liver glycogen stores prior to a race. And when it comes to races like your 10K, carb loading isn't really necessary. Just making sure that you're getting enough carbohydrates with each of your main meals the day before the race. Evidence does show that carb loading is only beneficial for those events which are greater than 90 minutes duration. So 10K, you shouldn't have to worry about. And that goes the same with the 5 kilometer as well, making sure that you're well fueled on the day before and the morning of. So both your half and full marathon are a different story, and they are fairly similar in regards to carb loading. So for a half marathon, no extreme carb loading is really required. It's just important to go to the start line with your carb stores full, which can be done by eating a normal amount of carb the day before. For example, a meal for breakfast, lunch and dinner that contains a really good portion of your pasta, rice or potato would work really well. At least a cup size or a cupped hand size would be beneficial, but it does depend on your body weight as well, and male and female also differs, so we can run through that as well. It's not necessary to go out and eat large amounts of food. You just want to make sure that you're nice and light and ready to go with enough energy on race day when it comes to your half marathon. For the full marathon, 2 days of carbohydrate loading has been found to be really beneficial for your performance on race day. So to avoid any gut upset as well, you want to make sure you're getting the right type of carbohydrate and making sure that the carbs are low fiber and low fat in the days leading into your race. So when it comes to fiber is important for normal, healthy bowel function, but you don't want to include it the day before you race because it is the indigestible part of a plant food. So essentially passes straight through the GI tract without being broken down. And that can cause increased bowel movements during your exercise or during your race. So that's not ideal when it comes to race day. So with that increased bowel movement, you can also get increased fluid loss, which also can really promote dehydration. So making sure that your meals are low in fiber in the days leading into the race or the morning of. And your really low fiber foods include those boring or processed foods such as your white bread, white rice, regular pasta, muffins or white English muffins and white bagels, rather than things like your high fiber cereals, oats and brown rices and brown breads. Also your whole grain pastas too, just watch out for them. As well as fiber, when you're carbohydrate loading or the day before your race, try and stay away from really high-fat foods such as those greasy fried foods, cheese, bacon, as fats really sit in your stomach and they will cause some issues during your race. So sticking to those really plain foods, low fat, low fiber, to really make sure that you avoid any gut upset on race day. When it comes to carb loading, you want to consume a little bit more carbohydrate than normal at the expense of some protein and some fat, just to make sure that you are filling up your glycogen stores without gaining any weight. So that might mean reducing your fat intake a little bit the day before and really adding some extra carbohydrates to your plate. So carb loading can get confused with overeating sometimes, or just eating as much as you can the day before you race, but that's not the idea. It's just really focusing on that important macronutrient, your carbohydrates, rather than protein and fats. Just remember, as I mentioned before, never try anything new on race day. Always practice in training first. So pick out a key long run that you might do during the week, whether that's on a Saturday morning or a Sunday, and really practice that nutrition or that carbo loading the day before and see how your gut tolerates it. You can also give the morning meal a crack as well and see how that sits in your stomach before that key session.
Brilliant. And might just ask you now, Danielle, we do get a lot of questions about the timing of that important or that carb-loaded meal the day before. If somebody does have a morning race, or they're certainly having to get up pretty early, when would you recommend should be the latest the day before that they're having that meal?
You don't want to go to bed really late for starters with early starts. The Gold Coast Marathon will be quite early unless you're doing the 5K fun run, so around that 6 a.m. So definitely don't want to be eating late. I'd say around that 6 p.m. mark is a good target to eat your last big meal for the night.